Hey, folks, and welcome back to the Tonic podcast here. Today, we are lucky enough to be joined by John McCombs. He is a 10-year veteran of comedy and a 4-year veteran of the Marine Corps. John has performed in 15 different countries, which is pretty cool, over 2 European tours. And he's also opened for Michelle Wolf, who was on Netflix, Comedy Central, said some interesting things about Sarah Huckabee Sanders. So great for him. He's also open for, let's see here, Tim Meadows from SNL, and is a regular at the Laugh Factory and Zanies. So, John, thanks for coming on, man. I just got to say, you're hilarious.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, this is good. I'm excited to make you laugh and maybe piss you off at the same time. But you're gonna hate how much you like me.
Well, we were talking before we started recording that over the last year, small talk has actually become nice. Like talking to people that you've never. Like it's in the past, I don't know about you, but small talk, I'm like, oh God, keep me out of this one. But now it's like, geez, just like talking to people about general stuff is fun.
I know, right?
I mean, just going to a 7-Eleven and somebody just asking you how your day is and like, let me download my entire day onto you. I mean, I used to be a cashier at Target and I remember those days. And like these single moms would just talk my ear off, and I didn't want to hear it. And now I get it. I feel like you have nobody else to talk to for your whole day, and so the first chance you get with an adult human interaction, you seize it. So yeah, I might say some crazy things in here that are gonna get me canceled, but you know what? Fuck it. I'm going for it. I'm sorry. Can I curse? I should have asked that.
No,
before.
You're good. It's the internet, man. We're
totally fine.
Yeah, we're not broadcast.
All right, good.
Yeah. Well, let's so before a pandemic though, give us a little bit of idea of what was going on with you and comedy and kind of like you said you almost started to do it full time before the pandemic. Like, give me a little insight into what was going on with that.
So I'm based out of Chicago. And I was doing shows pretty regularly. I was like getting more club work. I was doing shows, on the road and whatnot. And in 2019, I did a month-long, little over a month-long tour in Europe. I did 28 shows in like 30 some odd days. Nice. And I was making money. I was making enough to live off of. So I was like, okay, I'm at the end of my lease, the current lease I was on. I was going to, just make this big, long European tour, 90 days. That's how long you can travel there without a visa, and just make as much money as I can. And then, make the transition over to probably New York, and then just do this whole thing where I've got, I can make enough money for 3 months in Europe to survive for another 3 months in the States while I build more material, whatever, try to get my name out, and then I could go back on the road. And so I had a whole idea of how I was going to make things work, but good old Wuhan put an end to that.
Yeah,
some bats. Yep.
Yeah, it definitely, because I listen to a decent amount of comedy podcasts and stuff, kind of a range of people, and I think it's a fair thing to say that 2020 and now I guess 2021 hasn't been a great time for standard comedy. You know what I mean? Like if you're someone like, because I mean, like I said, you're hilarious. And like, if you're trying to get on the up and up, it's probably a strange time to be doing that, especially when you can't travel because you've done a lot of foreign tours and a lot of foreign specials. And like, that's what I was curious about is what are the crowds like? Do you have to like change your jokes in order to deal with, maybe people that like don't understand a lot of like American cultural things that maybe most comedians would talk about? Or is it mainly expats that are in, say, like Munich or Spain or something?
Not so much. I mean, sometimes it varies, but for the most part, I mean, you don't realize how much America has a hegemony until you go to another country. We control a lot of like the media that they take in. So they watch a lot of the same movies. They listen to a lot of the same music. They know our politics better than we do in a lot of cases. So they're very aware of like a lot of what's going on here culturally. One of the things, like you might have to change a handful of like references and local things, but I mean, it's not as drastic as people think. And a lot of people are asking me, you have to like perform in another language. I'm like, no, like a lot of the world speaks English as a second language too. So there are definitely places you can go and still be successful just performing in English.
Now, did you get your start while you were deployed on bases? Did I hear that right, or is that how did you get started with comedy in regard?
No.
Okay.
I started when I was in college.
Okay.
I started when I was so I went into the military after college, and when I was deployed, dude, I mean, the first deployment I did almost no comedy, and it sucked. I eventually convinced the base to let me organize a talent show, and that was fun. Like, I actually got to perform I was hosting the talent show, so I got to perform for actual like guys who were returning from Afghanistan because they were coming through our base as like their hub to go back to the United States. So I got to perform for all these guys who were coming back from Afghanistan. So it was pretty cool because like the next day I was at the barbershop and there were these two guys who were just transiting through, and they're like, "That host last night was pretty funny." They didn't even know it was me, so I was like, "Yes,
nice."
Unsolicited compliments are the best. Like, but yeah, I mean, and then my second deployment was to Spain, and that's where I met Alex, and we're still trying to figure out what drunken hellhole we stumbled into and bumped into each other to
It's a good problem to have. That's a good problem to have.
I have to ask you, talking about Spain, what do you think of Spanish comedy? Because so for the last 3 years I was working in Madrid and I lived with a Spanish family, and they would bring on some Spanish comedy shows, and to be honest, I was like, I didn't find it that funny. I don't know if you watched any Spanish comedy or anything, but
I'm still learning Spanish. Honestly, you're better than I am because I mean I was on a base when I was in Spain, so
right.
I mean I wasn't really interacting with a lot of Spaniards day to day. But but one of the positives of the pandemic is I have had time to actually learn Spanish. So at an intermediate level, I'd say right now. But I have been like watching a little bit of like Comedy Central, Latin America type stuff. But it's still like one of those where I'm still trying to figure everything out. But I mean, it seems like it's pretty good. I know, and I interviewed a comedian from Argentina a little whiles back about like what the comedy scene was like in Latin America, and so can't really give you an honest opinion because I don't want to. It's hard to judge somebody doing comedy in a language that's not their first language.
Sure.
I mean, I couldn't imagine trying to do Spanish or trying to do comedy in Spanish, even if I had a very good grasp of the language. It's just there's some things you just they don't translate. I don't want to try to judge somebody on that.
Like cadence, slang, that kind of stuff that it's really fluid in comedy that it's hard to translate. Yeah.
Play on words, puns, stuff like that. It's all so difficult. I mean, a lot of the concepts are the same, a lot of the themes, but the delivery method is just so it's different, and so I mean, hats off. I obviously know plenty of comedians who perform in English, and but it's not the first language, and only a handful, I would say, I really make me laugh. There's one guy in Estonia who's fucking so goddamn good. But he came to Canada and subsequently in the United States, and then he went back to Estonia. But the dude, he could crush in like any language, so he's fucking great.
That's dope.
I feel like there's a kind of a Slavic coldness that would make for great comedy.
Slavic cold.
It's
I know what you're talking about.
Deadpan. Well, I mean, you definitely see some countries where I think like there's definitely like in the Baltic states where it's colder. There's like this kind of this like feeling of just like despair. I don't know what it is. Like they're really drawn to like dark comedy and shit. So, I mean, that's what they go for. So more hats off to them.
So let's dive a little bit into the political aspects. Do you do politics in your comedy? I've checked out some of your material, and I get a joke about Uber drivers that I thought was hilarious. But do you do a lot of politics in your comedy?
I don't, or at least I didn't. Last year kind of changed things a bit. in terms of I mean, I remember coming back and I did a couple shows in the summer, and I had to feature at a club, and I was looking over, my material. I'm like, shit, man, some of these jokes I just don't feel like I can do anymore, and not from a perspective of like I'm going to get canceled or anything like that. It's more so from a sense of like I have a duty not to tell this joke the way with what's going on currently. The way it currently is, it just doesn't. It's not honest to me. It's not honest of how I feel in the moment. So, yeah, I think I've been writing more politically charged. Not like I don't want to harp on somebody, make it like people feel bad or nothing, but like I do like pointing out contradictions. I do like pointing out the absurdities of society and shit like that. So it's been a ripe time for that, for sure.
So you said over the last year you've got more political with your like comedic commentary.
Well, damn, dude, you guys said you read my Facebook, so
I mean, yeah, it's true.
That's the stuff. Honestly, it's getting like the most likes and shit. I don't know. It's when I just go on a rant. Like I had a whole series of posts where every day I was just dunking on Kentucky.
I remember that.
This was after Mitch McConnell like shot down the $2,000 stimulus checks. And I'm like, you know what? Fuck Kentucky. And I just every day was like a new thing. I shit on the Kentucky Derby. I shit on KFC. I shit on like the Kentucky Wildcats or whatever. Like anything that was Kentucky related, I just was like, fuck this. It was fun. Like people were actually enjoying it.
That reminds me of Bill Burr's like Philadelphia rant. You ever seen that Philly rant where he just shits on Philly fans for like an hour and a half and they love it? That's funny.
Oh yeah.
Okay, my question to you is, do you think Trump was good or bad for comedy? Because like at least with the late night shows, I feel like they all kind of got unprecedented success because they were so fixated on Trump. But since he's been out of office, like Seth Meyers and Colbert seem to be kind of struggling, for example, to really make people laugh as much. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I think he's been bad. I mean, anybody who thinks he's honestly been good for comedy, I don't think they're a good comic.
Fair,
because it's like he's good for easy, low hanging fruit. I mean, the guy he was a caricature before he was president. It's just this guy who can't form a sentence. It looks like a Tito, as people say. That's always what they go to. Whatever you want to call him, with weird haircut, and so for really, I mean, I had one Trump joke before before he became president, and then after that, or not before, but like while he was president, and then after that, I just didn't want to do them. I mean, it was, and I think Patton Oswalt, he has a special where he said it best. It's like trying to write Trump jokes is like trying to. It just, the news cycle was so fast. Mm-hmm. It's like you couldn't write about it because it's like trying to write about a monkey taking a shit on a sidewalk, and while you're trying to talk about this monkey taking a shit, it started a fire in a dumpster, and everybody's like, "Why are you talking about the shitting monkey? It started a fire now." It's like it's impossible to keep up. So yeah, it worked for a late night format where you write jokes that day and talk about shit that day. But as a comedian, you write jokes over the course of weeks, months, years even. And so it's not, how can you keep up with, what everything that we were talking about or everything that was going on for the past, 4 years.
Mm-hmm. Do you think though do you think that comedy has an important role in criticizing society or has that, or perhaps not, and it's just supposed to be entertainment?
100%.
You do think so?
No, 100%. It does. And some people will say, yeah, it's just funny. Just be funny to be funny. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with just wanting to do like Brian Regan, Jim Gaffigan type jokes, whatever. You want to talk about McDonald's or Pop-Tarts or whatever. That's fine. There's a market for that, and no harm, no foul against those guys for doing that. That's what they want to do. But you should still just speak to what's true to you and your experience. If you don't give a fuck about the politics, don't talk about politics. If you do, then go for it. So I just think we as comedians also need to recognize that, you know, comedy is such a vast, wide thing. It's like food, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Just because you like Italian doesn't necessarily mean that like eating, I don't know, Mexican is wrong. So they're two different things. You can have your preference of what you want. And you could dabble and mix it together or whatever. And then you have your candy. You know, everybody likes candy, but you know it's not going to fill you up. If you eat too much of it, you're going to feel bad. So it's like that. There's so many different avenues and places you can go with comedy that I don't think you have to, but just stay true to who you are and what is relevant to your experience.
It's funny you say candy, because I think that's a really interesting point to take, because I think myself included, I was a victim to this, but over the last 4 years, it was just easy to, like, you know, take a bite out of the lowest hanging fruit, you know, and now it's like, Jesus, like, that candy was sweet, but it didn't fill me up, and now I'm like craving something more comedy wise, you know, because like just these guys making the same jokes every day, you're like, yeah, there's not a whole lot of meat to it, I guess, but. Okay, so I want your opinion on it because there's still a little bit of comedy involved in this. But so you're a comedian. Like, what did you think about Ted Cruz's shitty stand-up attempt at CPAC? Because to me, he seemed like a really bad Dennis Miller. You know, like fascist Dennis Miller. Like he was yelling freedom and all this shit. And I'm like, what the hell is wrong with this guy? This was the guy who brought the Constitution to the debates in 2016, and now he's trying to like laugh about shit in 2020 and 2021. And what do you take of that, man?
Bro, I mean, I'm sorry. I know you might be a little more conservative than I am, but the current state of the Republican Party is fucking hilarious to me. It is
me too.
Simultaneously hilarious and terrifying. That's what it is. Is how many people still ascribe to this, and how many people just it's just bad shit. It's just people trying to act more like what they think people want. And so Ted Cruz is an attorney and a smart person, but he now feels like he has to put on this fucking WWE persona in order to tap into Trump's base. It's like Jeb Bush like tweeting a photo of a gun and saying America. Like what are you doing? Like, this isn't who you are. Just stop. Just be yourself. So I don't think he's fooling anybody. And I saw very brief clips of the CPAC thing, but like, I don't think he's fooling anybody. And I'm honestly like, I don't know what the Republican Party is going to do after Trump, because apparently none of them have any idea either.
It was pretty, yeah. I watched the CPAC, and it honestly felt like I was watching a parody of CPAC. But it was, again, it's almost that like you can't joke about it because it's already the joke kind of thing. Like that Ted Cruz stand-up bit was so cringy. I physically couldn't even watch. I had physical reactions to how cringy it was. I think but the last couple of things I wanted to touch on, because you mentioned a little bit about how you had some jokes that you wouldn't want to do anymore, or for whatever reason. And I want to touch on that because obviously the big cultural warfare topic right now is cancel culture, right? And you almost can't go a day without hearing about cancel culture. Do you feel that there is a kind of a cancel culture and it has an effect on comedy, or do you find that comedy is maybe perhaps ascended past it, or it's untouched by it, or somewhere in the middle?
No, I think, well, it depends on what your definition of cancel culture is, because a lot of people who have been quote unquote canceled haven't really been canceled. You know, they've had opportunities taken away from them, that they've also gained other opportunities. Cosby was canceled. That's fucking
sure. Okay. That's pretty much canceled.
So if you're looking at like people getting thrown in prison, that's different. But in my opinion, I think a lot of people who rail against cancel culture are usually just lazy. They're frustrated because they are being challenged to think a little more critically about something they want to say. Edgy comedy still has a place. Edgy comedy is not going anywhere. But to say I can't be edgy anymore because people get offended. Well, it's like, well, why are they getting offended? And it's because, like, you said a shitty thing. Well, maybe if you thought of a different way to say your shitty thing, or a less shitty way to say your point, at the end of the day, you want to point to the joke. So how you figure out how to deliver it is, ultimately what pisses people off or makes them like it. So, like, if a joke works without having to use a slur, then don't use the slur. I mean, like, you should be a good enough writer to be able to think around why somebody is offended about something you said. So most of the feedback, or most of the things I've heard, at least at my level, about cancel culture are not so much to do with people being offended over you can't talk about X ever. There are I know plenty of jokes of where people talk about X subject and they work and people like them. So it just, people don't want to do the homework, the research necessary to make it work.
Wow, that's a really good point, man.
Yeah, like I feel like cancel culture has been completely destroyed by the right over the last year. Because there was a time when, okay, you actually, like, maybe there was cancel culture in the fact of, like, there was disingenuous canceling of certain people over others. But now, to me, it just seems like the right have kind of become snowflakes. It's like, oh, I've been banned from Disney, but, like, 50 other platforms are calling me. But like Holly,
Yeah.
like, like you said, like, yeah, his book, it blows my mind, man.
It's like, there are repercussions to saying shitty things. So why continue to say shitty things? It's like, you don't want to, like, the people like First Amendment. Well, First Amendment just keeps the government from throwing you in jail for saying something stupid. Like, it doesn't stop a private company from banning you from Twitter or canceling their contract with you. They are a company who, at the end of the day, they want to make money. And if you cost them money, they're not going to work with you. So when you say shitty things, they have no obligation to continue to work with you when you're costing them money because of the shitty things you say.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, sorry, Drew, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I mean, with regards to like comedy, I mean, I've never done stand up myself. I have a brother who's done some stand up, but I've gone to like open mics and comedy nights around Los Angeles. I've been to Flappers and Burbank and stuff, and this was obviously all pre-pandemic. But I remember, like, the comics there were throwing out jokes that probably wouldn't pass the Twitter test, but people were laughing. I didn't think anyone felt uncomfortable. Like, I guess to me I'm not associated with like comedy in the industry. And then when I went to a show, I was like, oh wow, like, people are getting away with, like, people are laughing at stuff and people are saying jokes that I would have maybe thought would be cancel culture and that weren't.
On the other side of that, on the other side of that is to also remember that, like, if somebody has an issue with a bit, a comedy, whatever, they have an issue with the comedy routine, they can't come at it. They shouldn't come at it from a disingenuous point of view. So when people, for instance, take something that's said in the comedy club, strip it of the context, and print it on paper, then it's different. It has a totally different feel. And then now it is completely how you, the reader, interpret it based on your voice, based on your experiences, based on all that, without any of the nuance of comedy. A lot of this, I mean, you could take almost any comedian in the world, and if you just print out their act word for word on paper, you could cancel probably half of them, honestly. And some of them probably who are not even that, you wouldn't think that they're offensive comedians. But that's the art in the work, is putting the nuance in the material. And that's why it works in clubs. That's why, that environment works. In the context of a comedy club, if you are offended by something a comic says, or open mic, whatever, with knowing that their intention was trying to make somebody laugh or something like that, I think it's fine. It's totally appropriate and fine if you come afterwards and say, hey, I had a problem with this joke because of XYZ, whatever. And I wouldn't get offended by somebody having a problem with a joke I told if they came to me and said, hey, maybe I had this experience, or maybe I don't think you're doing proper respect to this thing. And I've asked comics, or friends of mine, after an open mic where I've done sets where I talk about, LGBTQ stuff, and who are of that community, and I said, hey, am I okay here? Like, do you think like there's a way that I'm approaching this that I should change, or something like that? And I mean, I'm not trying to make them like my whisperer or whatever, but I do feel like their opinion and their perspective on the subject matter is important, and I want to respect. Maybe they see something that I don't see, or or can relate to experience I have not had personally.
Mm-hmm. But you're doing your due diligence, and there's respect involved.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want to talk about something that I haven't done research on. I haven't tried to at least understand. And if I don't understand it, I will be the first one to admit I don't fucking know what I'm talking about. And I am not somebody you should listen to. But here's my take, because you're here and you paid 2 drinks. So
there you go. Right.
I'm curious to you, because I think there's a cultural aspect to kind of Trumpism that doesn't get discussed enough, and it's kind of like a reaction to the left's like kind of more politically correct culture that's been growing. And I'm center right, like I've left the Republican Party, but I'm worried about Trumpism because there's Republican values I cherish still. And I wonder if comedy, or not even comedy, but the cancel culture / the crazy like social justice like kind of culture that some people on the left have, I'm worried that it's just going to push people back towards Trumpism. And like I'm worried that everyone thinks that, okay, Biden defeated Trump in 2020, so we're all good. Do you like, because I have this fear, and I'm curious if either one of you shares this with me, that if the left keeps going so like gun heavy with critical race theory and just taking a fine magnifying glass to everything that people say, do you think there could be a backlash in 2024? Like, because I just look at even some things that comedians say where they like the New York Times puts out an article, and it's not like you're watching the special, you're reading what they said a month after it was said, out of context. And I'm worried that just kind of this overreactive craziness is going to have a backlash again.
Well, I mean, we already saw it. I mean, Obama was followed by Trump, succeeded by Trump. So,
fair.
I mean, you did see that backlash already manifest in Trump and Trumpism. And then the appeal of Trumpism, I've noticed, is that it doesn't require critical thought. It is very simple solutions to very complex problems. Yeah. Illegal immigration. Build a wall. ISIS is killing people. Carpet bomb them. Like shit like that, where you just say a soundbite and people just lose their shit because they don't have to think critically anymore. I don't think, I mean.
Don't you think though canceling Mr. Sorry, but don't you think like canceling Mr. Potato Head, for example, or like these type of things, don't you think they just get in the way of actually good policy and good progress? Like, I don't know.
Well, all that shit's just a fucking smoke show anyway. It's all just posturing.
But it fuels the right.
Renaming Aunt Jemima is just pandering, so you don't have to make any actual real structural changes to problems. It's just a fucking Band-Aid over a fucking, leak in the dam. So, I mean, that's what they're going to continue to do, because there's money in it. As long as there's money in pissing people off, that's what they'll continue to do. So, and now they've gone from Fox News to Newsmax to OAN, and it's now an even louder bullhorn picking out the most ridiculous stories of, now the new thing is like, gender fluidity. That's the new like fucking fighting ground that they're taking up, and it's like, are we going to allow transgender athletes to compete in women's leagues and stuff like that? So it's stuff like that are basically just dog whistles to get people excited and pissed off. They just want to keep people pissed off. That's really it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you certainly have not pissed me off. I thought this was a great episode. Go for it.
Hold on, Drew. I feel disappointed if I didn't bring this up while we still have John on here. It was after Trump got acquitted for the second time. You commented on my post and talked about how like we should encourage Democrats to find Republicans that are not QAnon Trumpists and vote for them in the midterms and stuff. Like, could you go into that just really quickly? Because I think that's actually a cool idea and maybe bipartisan.
100%, because I mean, I looked at like a representative in Illinois, Adam Kinzinger.
Mm-hmm.
He's a Republican, and he was one of the first ones to say like Trump was responsible. We need to distance ourselves from this guy. And he got so much backlash. He got a letter written from his own family telling him how disappointed and disgusted they were because of what he said about Trump. And, you know, we need more politicians who are going to put the country before the party and who are going to, at the very least, acknowledge reality. Like, that's what's really disturbing and frustrating for me, is that how willing a lot of these people are to recognize that this guy is a fucking poison, but I'm still going to indulge him because I want his votes. And I mean, shit, dude, if you made the impeachment a secret ballot, he would have been convicted like 95-5. Like, no doubt. They all fucking hated him. They all knew he was responsible for that shit. But, you know, so long as, I mean, and so to your point with what I said on that post is, yeah, I was advocating for people in 2022 and whatever local elections to if they're left leaning, if they're Democratic, if you live in an area like Alabama, Mississippi, heavily GOP areas where, you know, like your Democratic candidate is going to get fucking destroyed anyway, vote for at least like a moderate on the right. Vote for somebody who can at least have common sense and not just do whatever Trump says, who has some guts and sticks up for what they believe in. And that way we can start to shift the GOP back towards a party that has some, at least exists in reality, you know, at least exists in reality that we all live in. So that's what I would like to see is, yes, the GOP return to
Earth,
a reality based on fact.
Yeah.
Earth.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well said.
Definitely well said.
Well, we should probably wrap this episode up. Alex, do you have any final thoughts before we head out of here?
No, I just I'm just glad to have you on. I just think you're funny, and you know, obviously this year has taken some tolls on probably being able to grow your brand. You know, but I definitely wish you the best because I think you're not only funny, but you have just amazing ideas, and you know So not much else to say, but yeah, thank you for coming on.
So where can people find you?
Yeah, so I have I'm on Facebook, obviously. I'm on Instagram at John McCombs Comedy. I should be on Twitter more, unfortunately, but I'm not. I wish I was, but God damn it, it's just so hard to grow a following there. I've already got all these people on Facebook. Here, I make all my Facebook posts public, so just like it. Don't comment stupid shit. Just share it and like it. So, and that'll be more to me than everything else. But yeah, and I'll be starting hopefully some live stuff again soon. But yeah, thanks.
Last thing, I'm just curious. Will 2022 be better for comedy?
2022?
Yes, sir. Like once the pandemic is over, like once we get back to life.
Dude, 2021 is gonna be better for comedy than last year. Shit. I mean, we got 3 vaccines. I mean, I'm cautiously optimistic. So I do think that we are going to be in the summer at a place where, I mean, we were already doing outdoor stuff, and that's at least a good thing about like what came out last year's. It showed how much resiliency people have, because we were doing outdoor shows, people were doing drive-in shows, there's Zoom comedy. I mean, is it the same? No, but we're trying our best.
Yeah.
So I believe that we're going to see a comedy boom. We're going to see a live entertainment boom after this is all said and done. So I'm looking forward to that, and looking forward to getting back out there.
Well, I certainly know that I personally am itching to do anything regarding society and having fun. So comedy clubs will be on my list as well once the world goes back to normal. John McCombs, everyone, thank you again so much for coming on. Please check out his stuff. He is a super funny guy, and also a pleasure to have on the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you very much, everybody.
All right. Well, you know where to find us at the Tonic Accord: Podbean, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Leave your comments below. Let us know what you think about anything regarding politics, comedy, how they intersect. Let us know your thoughts. And as always, stay tuned for next week's episodes. Take care, everyone, and have a good night.